Ralph Eugene Meatyard was a family man, an optician, and a pioneer exploring the expressive potential of photography. If good, upstanding folk in Lexington, Kentucky knew what he was up to during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they would have probably shielded their children's eyes. He was president of the PTA and coached a boys' baseball team, but he would hang around with deviants like writers and poets who were interested in things like jazz and Zen Buddhism. Unlike the narcissistic Goth art that one finds in art school exhibitions, Meatyard's images spring from an exploration of dreams and terrors of the unconscious. At a time when many of his contemporaries were producing gritty images on the street to discover truth, Meatyard was creating an outsider art aesthetic. There were no obvious hints in his early life that an artist was going to emerge. His brother Jerry displayed the artistic talent in the family, becoming a sculptor and an arts educator. Meatyard did, however, show a real interest in dramatics and the processes involved in theatre production. The impact of this exposure is clearly seen when he later begins using masks, props, and other tools of the theatre. He first picked up a camera at the age of 25, mainly to take pictures of his first child. It's interesting to delve into what influenced him to develop his unique aesthetic. Buddhist thinking definitely made more of an impact on his ideas than, say, the Southern Gothic aesthetic. Southern Gothic is a particular form of artistic pursuit that belongs to the American South and usually explores themes of madness, decay, and despair, often linked to the dark elements of the region's past. Meatyard's photographic practice became an art closer to music or poetry than it was to mainstream photography. His work challenged most of the cultural and aesthetic conventions of his time and didn't fit in with the dominant view of what constituted art photography and the direction in which it should be advanced. But Meatyard did his own thing. On weekends, he traveled with his family to the countryside looking for abandoned buildings. There, he would choreograph scenes using his wife and children as models. Later, he bought a box of Halloween masks at a store and would get his friends and family to wear them as they interacted in posed, seemingly normal situations. He believed that by placing a mask on his subjects, he was creating, in his words, the aroma of having a person within the scene. The masks were a way of non-personalizing a person. He rejected the idea that it was possible for a photograph to reveal the essence of a person. He believed that we all wear multiple masks, one over the other. He thought that by including a masked figure, the messaging was entirely different from when one has a specific human being in a picture. The generalized human becomes grotesque, comic, or mysterious, and this alters the viewer's response, either attracting or repelling them. For Meatyard, these masked figures don't become anonymous other people. Rather, they mirror ourselves. Cindy Sherman said that Meatyard had a strong influence on her work, particularly the use of masks, the staging of scenarios, and the exploration of duality. They also both explored themes of identity, performance, and the nature of reality itself. During a workshop that Meatyard attended, he was exposed to two important figures, Aaron Siskind and Minor White. Siskind had discovered inspiration for his photography in the abstract expressionist paintings of Franz Klein, and he believed strongly that photographers could learn from painters and painting. Minor White encouraged his students to work through an eclectic reading list, which opened the door for Meatyard to delve into the spiritual realms and also into surrealism. When Meatyard was making pictures of his children in abandoned houses, he wasn't just making funky pictures. He was exploring ideas of creating images of life within death, as well as drawing both the past and the future into the present. For him, a blurred figure represented mortality expressed through movement and life rather than through decay. These are the kind of things that surrealists were looking at. They were attempting to tap into the unconscious mind in order to present a relationship between opposites and, at the same time, disrupt logical thought by placing contradictory elements within the frame. While Meatyard sometimes described his work, especially his early work, as abstract surrealism, he would always clarify by saying that to him, what this meant was that he presented scenes that represented more real than real experiences. His images then represented the fantasy world of Alice in Wonderland, in which nothing is logical or certain. They definitely weren't nursery rhymes with comfortable endings. It's not known for sure if Sally Mann was influenced by his work, but their photographs share similar themes. They both are linked to the Southern Gothic, and viewers are often left questioning what is being communicated through their images. Both also used their family in order to create choreographed scenes. Meatyard stripped images down to a set of essentials and began to experiment with these. The form or structure of pictures engaged him, but only in relation to how it could be used to express emotion. He was restless, and over time he built multiple experimental essays. Many of his images are better read as poems or as musical scores, especially the Light on Water series and his multiple exposures, which he called motion sound. He also began linking his painting to his photographs. He would paint on glass and then photograph the results under different lighting conditions. Roger Ballin is another contemporary photographer who owes a debt to Meatyard. Ballin uses painting, drawing, and theatrical elements to create his surreal and macabre scenes. They're aimed at unsettling the viewer with their psychological undertones. These days, out-of-focus images are acceptable as a form of expression, but when Meatyard was creating his no-focus imagery, it was completely out of step with a strong trend towards realism. When he showed this work, he found that most photographers weren't impressed, while the painters found the experiments interesting. He exhibited with well-known photographers like Edward Weston, Ansel Adams, Harry Callahan, and Robert Frank. But by the late 1970s, his photographs were out of sync with the main themes of the day. His work might occasionally appear in exhibitions that were dedicated to Southern art. Then, towards the end of the century, there was a resurgence of interest in his work, and his contributions to photography began to be understood and appreciated. During the 90s, another photographer emerged with strong connections to Meatyard's aesthetic. Joel Peter Witkin also used the human form to explore the boundaries of beauty and ugliness, as well as themes of death and violence. Witkin seems to be pursuing the grotesque in a far more intellectual manner than Meatyard, whose practice was more instinctually linked to teasing out the connections between the theatre of life and the photographic image. For Meatyard, his acts of creation were moments of performance, and he was rigorous about holding what he termed an integrity of intention. He saw great freedom in creating believable scenes that questioned our reality. His life was cut short at the age of 46 when he died of cancer. His friends and colleagues helped to organize his work for an Aperture monograph, and then the family album of Lucy Bell Crater, which he had laid out and sequenced before his death. Thanks to @TooLooseLautrec for prompting this video, and I'll see you next time.